Good morning to you all. Welcome back to the Namaste Experience on this brand new week, this Monday, wherever we are, whoever we are here now to remember, to awaken, to allow this light to penetrate all of those hard places that we still have within us that say, I'm right about this. I know what I'm doing. Just let me do my thing. Or however it appears in your life. The self assertion, the self asserting itself to say, I know, I'm pretty sure I got this. But today's lesson is going to be based on a very simple idea that I'm going to claim for myself and that I'm going to offer to you as well. And the idea is very simple. I can't do this on my own, and neither can you. Neither can any of us. The idea that I am alone, the idea that I could accomplish anything in my aloneness, is the illusion of separation itself. So we're going to see if we can challenge that today and see if we can move into a softer space of allowing it to be done for us, to allow guidance and direction to take us to not only where we want to go, but where we've always been, where we've always been. What I like to call the heaven we never left, except in our imagination. So I want to begin by telling you how this came to me, this concept of I can't do this on my own. And it's one of those stories that seems to repeat itself here now and then. And it has to do with two things. Number one, the Chicago Bears. And number two, the Green Bay Packers. You'll remember we talked about this 2 weeks ago, didn't we? So let me tell you how it happened. I had no idea that the Bears and the Packers were playing again on Saturday night. I did not know until Penny Honey texted me and kind of gave me, a thumbs up for the Bears, even though even at that point, the Bears were getting destroyed. My team was just getting trounced on their own field at Soldiers Field in Chicago, right down the road, because I'm here in Chicago. So I probably could have almost heard the ruckus from where I sit. Well, not really. It's still pretty far away, but still. It was happening right here. But at first, in fact, I wrote to Penny and said, nope, I'm not going to allow myself to be pulled in like I always get pulled in. I'm going to be able to master this and do this on my own. I'm going to not check. I'm not going to look. I'm not going to pay attention to what is happening in the game between the Bears and the Packers. Well, I realized not long later that I can't do this on my own because, of course, before you know, maybe an hour, hour and a half later, I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I went and I checked. And, well, just as it happened 2 weeks ago, the Bears were down. They were getting trounced pretty good. And with only about 2 minutes left, always at the end of the game, they came back and they beat those dreaded Packers. And of course, I was so excited. I was elated. I was like, yes. But then I remembered. No, this is not what I really want. Am I going to limit my happiness to having a particular team that really has nothing to do with me? We assign allegiance to different groups and teams and ideas, but they really have nothing to do with who I really am. But I limit myself and say, I am this, I am that, I'm a Bears fan, or I am a Packer fan, or I'm anything else. And if it goes the way I think it should, let the party begin. But what would have happened if when I couldn't take it anymore. I tuned in, and it had not gone the way that I had hoped it would. Let's say the Packers won. Would I have been able to, in that moment, step aside, be happy, and have it have no effect on the joy that I feel and experience because I know that I am one with God? I am one with love itself. Would I have been able to do that? Well, it may have. I may have been able to do it after a few minutes, but it would have caught me for sure. And I know that because of the happiness and joy I felt because the Bears had won. And it's always a swinging pendulum, isn't it? If it goes the way I want, I'm happy. But if it doesn't go the way I want, well, I have a challenge before me. Can I still be happy regardless? And here's the key. And as we said in the very beginning, we cannot do this on our own. And the reason is quite simple because the me that is trying to do this on my own is actually the problem. The fact that I am alone trying to do this. So let's talk a little bit about that now. You see, we can't help ourselves, but we can ask for guidance, for the guidance that offers us true help. And this is what it means to be truly helpful. The mind that feels separated is the same mind that tries to fix the separation. And of course, it's pretty easy for us to see that that's impossible. The mind that imagines separation is incapable of fixing the same separation that it created. It just begins searching for better thoughts or better practices, better identities, and better outcomes. In a game, we're looking for our team to win, our side to conquer. But is that what we really want? All of this, every little bit of it happens inside the illusion that created the actual problem. So we can't escape it on our own. We can't do this by ourselves because separation is not a condition of reality. It's a story that the intellect tells itself about reality. A story that the intellect tells itself about reality. And no story can heal the one who is telling it. This is so simple because it's our effort, our trying to do this on our own, as sincere as that is, that's what keeps the dream alive. We try to improve the dream instead of waking from it. As long as my team wins, everything is okay. But trying to improve the dream instead of waking from it is never going to solve the problem. We try to make the ego more spiritual, the fear more polite, the conflict even more manageable. But the deeper invitation that we have now is not to try and solve the problem, but to recognize that the problem was never real in the first place. That's the key. And when we stop struggling to become whole, we begin to notice that wholeness has never left us. Otherwise, all we are is distracted by this game or that game, and they're all games. It's all children playing on a field trying to create the illusion of winning something that never really happened at all. This is not a game for us to win. This is a game for us to see through. And that's why we join here every day, because we all get pulled into these traps. We all get pulled into these ideas of winning and losing and our team and their team. But we gather here every day so that we can build up those muscles that see through rather than get caught in, to see through rather than get caught in. Even though I tried to stay away from that game, as soon as I heard from Penny Honey that the game was going on, I felt myself sort of biting at the bit for 2 hours before I finally gave into it. I can't do this on my own. I need help. We need to ask for guidance. So today, instead of trying to do it on our own, we're simply going to rest, not in passivity, but in trust. We allow ourselves to be undone from the idea that we have to rescue ourselves. And it's in that quiet undoing that something greater remembers us. And we discovered that we were never really meant to cross that ocean by swimming. That's never going to happen. Only to realize that we were already standing in the water, held, carried, and never separate at all. What I like to call the infinite ocean of grace. We're in it right now. This is not a game that we can win or a game that we can lose. It's not something that we root for, something that we try to make happen. It's something that we just allow to be true right now. And we do it by realizing we can't get there on our own. We're not going to be able to figure this out. So, Penny Honey, thank you very much for telling me about that game so I could learn this lesson. And I'll go ahead, as you all may have noticed, Vicky is not with us today. I think she's at the doctor getting checked up, which we're grateful for. And so we're just going to turn it over to Penny Honey now and see where she would like to take us in this beautiful drama.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Oh, wow, do I feel responsible? I noticed, James, that I let you know that the game was happening when the Packers were winning. I also noticed that it was easier with my little text message to say, I'm sending the Bears love, when the Packers were winning. I found it a little more difficult when I saw the result of the game. And see, I think that's a big part of the teaching, isn't it? It's easy to send love, and it's easy to be present, and it's easy to see through the illusion when it's something that isn't uncomfortable. On Sunday morning, we do a deep dive breakfast. Several folks from Namaste and outside the Namaste community come together, and there's a topic, and this week the topic was about getting comfortable with your discomfort or being comfortable in being uncomfortable, right? So in that conversation, for me, what I came around to was maybe when I feel that angst, when I feel that I can't do this on my own, maybe that really is, as we like to say in the Course in Miracles, a call to love. Maybe these are the opportunities the universe presents us with so that we can truly then open ourselves to a greater expression. And when we remember, that infinite oneness that we are a part of, maybe we can take those experiences and reconnect with who we truly are and with who each other truly is. Games are fun. They remind us that we can play. And we can even sometimes, a little bit, I think, as we had talked about before with the Packers and the Bears, rejoicing in somebody's suffering. We talked a little bit about that. But I think that these are the moments that we also get to see our humanness and embrace it, as I will repeatedly remind us, because I want to hear that in my life. I want the humanness in me to be embraced and to be celebrated. So it's really all selfish on my part, as are most things. Thus the reason we forget that we can't do it alone. You know, Thomas Merton said, and I'm going to penny phrase this, along the line of, when we stop trying to solve the problem of God, we will really get to see the true God. We will really recognize then the divine in ourselves and each other. These moments that we're stacking up thoughts and opposition and defense, and we've had a lot of time and practice at those things, thus making it difficult sometimes to say, hey, I could use a hand, or hey, I could use a heart. There's that. But what I notice is, and this is so standard actually, our woes are divided in half and our joys are doubled when we remember that we're not in this alone. And not only can we not do it alone, we really don't have to. And to give ourselves permission to be the infinite expression of the divine and know that I am one in the oneness, but I'm not the only one. I am the drop in the ocean. And in my collective consciousness, I become the ocean in every drop of who I am, as Rumi reminded us. I like this idea of choosing teams, getting all excited about things, kind of revving each other up, so we can stand back and laugh. I think the universe needs some entertainment, and I've decided that I'm a big form of that. And then to rest into and come back to, and being embraced in that oneness, I find for me, there's healing there. I like that thought, you know, of sending love right in the middle of my team winning. The challenge is to send love when they're not. The challenge is when I don't agree. The challenge is when I question my own integrity. Can I send love then? Can I send into the field of oneness a connection that is greater than anything I can understand? And can we then embrace ourselves? Not only ourselves, but ourselves within the oneness. It seems to me that the fabric of the oneness soon becomes quite capable of carrying us. You know, a quilt is made up of scraps. The most beautiful quilts that I have, of course, made by my grandma May. And I still have them, and I'm using them every day. Those quilts are made of scraps, the coming together of something that has been greater, the pieces that are brought back together in a different pattern, in a different expression. And it starts in the piecing of it together. Never did I see her sit in a chair that she didn't have some kind of handiwork. Piecing life together. And then combining that with this grand expression of a quilt, where it's all put together and it functions as one piece, serving in so many greater ways. I see our life like that. I say, I have a little thing that hangs on my wall. It says, if life gives you scraps, make a quilt. Because you're part of that. You're part of that greater piece. And together we bring comfort, see? And we bring healing, just like a quilt. Which I used a lot of quilts when I was watching the Packers at Lambeau Field. Because it was cold. And it's comfort, isn't it? To come together and support each other and warm each other and comfort each other. I like being a part of this quilt. Now, James, I promise that my quilt will not have a Green Bay Packers symbol on it. Instead, I just see us enjoying this humanness that we are and the fun of playing this game of life that we're in. and then finding comfort in the quilt of being the one that we are. So, with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Oh,
Oh,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Penny Honey. Yes, these are games that we play until we realize that the only game worthy of each and every one of us is the game of loving no matter what. Doesn't matter if our team wins or loses, the power is in the joining together and letting love ascend, letting it take precedent over every other game or illusion that we've claimed, all of the ways that we try to do this on our own. You know, you were talking about quilts, Penny, and it reminded me of a project that I spearheaded many years ago that illustrates in a very direct way the power of this joining, the power of turning our will over to the divine and letting it be done instead of trying to do it ourselves. It was back in, I think, 1998 or 9 that I started a project called The Cloth of Many Colors. I asked people to send in a tiny piece of cloth, something that meant something to them that they had held in their hands and energized with their prayers, their energy and feelings of peace. At the time, I was living in Joshua Tree, California, and it's a small town, as you may know, but we were by far receiving more mail than anyone else in that whole town, maybe the whole town combined, because almost every day we would get hundreds, even thousands of envelopes, letters in the mail, each with a little piece of cloth. It just took off. So many people heard about this project and they were inspired by it because it was doing something that was pulling us together. And we found people who could begin sewing those pieces of cloth together in a quilt that was 3 feet wide and then got longer and longer as it went. See, this all started from a dream that I had. And in the dream, I saw this quilt being wrapped around the base of the United Nations building in New York. And so we began to sew these together. Within a few months, that quilt had grown to be a 1/4 mile long. A short time after that, as we continued to sew these pieces together, each one being energized by the peace and the love of someone, before long it was a 1/2 mile in length. And by the time we got a van to take this quilt all the way from California to New York in September of 2000, it was a mile in length, a whole mile. And along with children from all over the world, we wrapped that base. Unfortunately, it was raining, so we couldn't do it outside, but we did it inside. It was wrapped throughout the inside of the United Nations building. Several days later, I was invited to bring it to the Pentagon. We had a special ceremony with it there. And the next day after that, it was wrapped around the U.S. Capitol by members of Congress. Maybe we could use that today, that kind of quilt, a quilt where we come together to realize we can't do this on our own. At the very least, we need to come together so that this energy, this power of love, of peace can manifest. One final story about that quilt. It was about 2 or 3 years later, I was doing a concert tour across the country. I was doing a peace concert every single day for 2.5 months during the season for nonviolence. And one of the very final events was going to be at the Capitol in Washington, D.C. We had gotten a permit to do the prayer vigil there at the on the west lawn of the Capitol. And it was a beautiful day, and there was a woman there who I had gifted a very large portion of the quilt because uh, she was the director of a powerful peace movement there in Washington, D.C. And she brought this section that I had given her, and asked what we should do. And I had the feeling, let's take it and put it in the form of a huge peace sign on the ground, and we'll do the concert inside the peace sign, which is what we did. And as we all gathered inside this peace sign to do the concert on this beautiful day on the west lawn of the U.S. Capitol, we could feel the energy of all of those prayers. We could feel the vibration of all of those people who had held that little piece of cloth in their hand, added to the enormous quilt that now was right there on the ground. Well, what we didn't know was that the next morning, when the sun rose and the police came, of course, we had wrapped it up and taken it away, the previous day. But when the sun came up the next day, they noticed something rather remarkable. The area where the quilt had been had somehow changed the ground itself, and there it was, as bright as can be, a peace sign. The grass had grown longer and greener where the peace sign had been the day before. That's the fertilization of our prayers, of our love, of our peace. When we let go of the need to win, when we let go of the need to take sides, the energy of peace grounds itself and takes hold in ways that we can't even begin to imagine. I'll never forget that story. I have a picture of that somewhere. Maybe I'll try and find it and show it to you. It was actually the next day that someone went up on the balcony overlooking the grass. They were able to take a picture of it so that we could see it's true. It really did happen. In fact, one more story about that day. It just shows the miracle of us coming together. Before the concert began, I was just walking around looking at all the little sections of quilts that had been made, that had been sewn together, that we had originally brought to the United Nations building in the Capitol and the Pentagon in 2000, and then a few years later there on the grass of the US Capitol once again. I was looking at all the different pieces, and I saw one section that caught my attention. It was from a school in New York, downstate New York, called Immaculate Conception School. The entire school had gotten together and made a section of this quilt, and each student had signed it. This was amazing for me for many reasons. Number one, because this was my grade school, the grade school that I went to when I was young, in a little tiny town in New York State. And there it was. This was the miracle of joining. This was the miracle of letting go of allegiances and saying, I'm rooting for this group or I'm rooting for that team or whatever it may be. All of those stories with that quilt came together to celebrate oneness. So I'm grateful that you reminded me of that, Penny Honey, so that I could share all of those beautiful stories about the quilt. And that's what we are now. We are a new kind of quilt coming together with the what seems to be the separate pieces of our lives. But when we join together as we do here every day, it makes and creates something that's truly miraculous. And just like that story of the peace sign on the grass in the west lawn of the US Capitol, we're going to have an impact. We're going to change everything by realizing we can't do this on our own. We listen to the guidance, we respond to the love, and to that we say, Amen, 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 e punto. Have a beautiful day. We love you all. Namaste.